Hello everyone, it's the end of the month, so it is time to talk about my TBR for April. And whenever I do a TBR video, I always put a lot of books on it, but that is because I'm a mood reader and I like to have a lot of possibilities. And so this is not like a strict TBR, strict list of things I'm going to read in April. These are just kind of things on my radar, things that I would like to read soon, and I will just mood read from this list. So that's why I end up putting a lot of things. And so in April, I have kind of 3 things that I am going to focus on. So the first category of books that I want to focus on are series. So each month this year, I've been pulling out books from a couple jars. I have a continuing series jar and a new series jar. But this month, I'm going to just pull from my continuing series jar because in the past few months, I have seen that I get pulled towards the new series, and sometimes I haven't been finishing all my continuing series. I've still been doing several, but it always seems like the one I want to pick up is the new series. So in April, I just really wanted to focus on continuing some series and maybe even finishing some if there's some with like 1 or 2 left. And so I'm going to pull 6 out of here this time. I usually pull 3 and read at least 1. I'm going to pull 6 and try to read 2 or 3 from those 6 series. So I'm going to pour these into a bigger container and pull 6 options. I'll put the pictures here and then I can pull them off of my shelf later because they're kind of everywhere and I don't want to have to interrupt the video. So the first one, is the Wing Feather Saga, which is a middle grade fantasy, which actually I can just grab that right here because it's right behind me. And so that would be North or Be Eaten is the second book in that series. I read the first book last year, was really enjoying it, and I just love these like naked hardcovers. So I am excited to continue this series and want to get to it before I have to like reread the first book. So that's the first option. I keep pulling out more than one. Okay, here we go. All right, and then we have the Seabound Chronicles, and this is actually the 3rd time I pulled this series and haven't continued it this year. So I might have to just make myself read these. Not that I'm not looking forward to it. This is a young adult dystopian where the earth has become, like the land has become uninhabitable after a natural disaster. And so people are living on the ocean in like yachts and things. And it was interesting. The first book, I just haven't been compelled to pick it up again. So I should probably do that since I've pulled it 3 times and still haven't moved on to the next book. And that was another one. I started the first book, the series, at the end of last year, so it's still fresh in my mind. I don't have to reread the first one for that. Okay, and then I have Brothers Sinister. So far this is great because they've been different genres. You know, I had fantasy and then dystopian, and this one is romance. And that's good because I've been kind of in the mood to read a romance after watching a lot of Bridgerton lately. And the Brothers Sinister is a historical romance book, and I am on I think the 3rd full novel in this series because I have read a couple novellas and a couple novels. So we have that one on the list. And then number 4 is The Remnant Chronicles. This is a good one because if I read this, I'll have finished the series. So I've read books 1 and 2 in this trilogy, just have 1 book left. It is a very thick book, but I've been reading them on audiobooks, so that might be a great option because these other ones I have not been doing on audiobook. So this would be a good one to do on audiobook, and then I could finish a series. And this is a young adult fantasy series. Okay, and then number 5, I have the Study series, which is by Maria V. Snyder. And this is a reread of a series. I had read the trilogy a while ago, but then she continued into like a 6-book series with 2 arcs, I believe. And so I am rereading the first arc so I can move on to the second one. So I've only read the first book, which is Poison Study, as a reread. And so I think the next one is Magic Study. I always get confused when books have like all the like titles are the same except for you replace one word. So it's either Magic Study or Fire Study. I'll put a picture of the right one here. And so that's another fantasy book. I can't remember if that's young adult or adult, but I really enjoyed Poison Study, so that would be good to continue. And then the 6th one is Curse Breakers, which is like the first one is A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and that was a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So for this one, I might have to reread the first book. If I choose this one, I think I would go back because it's been 2, maybe almost 3 years by now since I have read this book. Okay, so those 6 options I have, which I'm going to pick 2 or 3 from, are middle grade fantasy, The Wingfeather Saga, the last book in the Remnant Chronicles, The Beauty of Darkness, which is fantasy, another fantasy, Magic Study, and then the last fantasy one, Restarting, A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and then I have a young adult dystopian, and then the next book in the Brother Sinister's romance. All right, and then the next category of books that I want to choose from are based on a readathon that is going on in April, and that's the All the World's a Page readathon, which is a Shakespeare themed readathon where you don't have to read just Shakespeare plays, but they have prompts based off of each of the plays. And this is running the whole month of April, and the hosts are Kara from Wild Book Garden, Olivia Savannah from Olivia's Catastrophe, and Julia from Shakespeare and Such. I'll link their announcements down below, or their channels, so you can look it up. And what I did was they have prompts for like every single play. They have like team comedies, team tragedies, team history, and have a prompt based on each one. And what I wanted to do for this one is that right now we are studying Rome, ancient Rome, my daughter and I, as part of our homeschool history. And all this year at homeschool, I've been kind of reading books to supplement my study of the ancient civilizations that I've been teaching her. And so I want to read some books about ancient Rome that I have, and so I just made them fit these prompts. And so I have 5, 2 from Team Comedy and 3 from Team Tragedy. So the first one is based off of Pericles, Prince of Tyre, and that is to read a book by multiple authors or a book involving water in some way. And for that one, I picked the book Pompeii by Robert Harris, and this is about when the volcano erupted in Pompeii, but then the main character in this that we are following is a man who is in charge of aqueducts. Like, I don't know what his job would be called, but basically he's an engineer. So he's a young engineer whose job is to fix this aqueduct that is going into Pompeii. And so that's what brings him to the town right before the disaster. And so obviously if he is an engineer of aqueducts, it's going to involve water in some ways. And then the next prompt is Sibylline, which I hope I'm pronouncing this right, because those are 2 plays that I have not read before or heard of. And the prompt for that one is, this play is partly based on some legends of ancient Britain. Read a book based on another story or source, like a fairy tale retelling or historical figure or whatever. And for this, I'm picking Lavinia by Ursula K. Le Guin. And this is a retelling of the Aeneid. This is from the point of view of Lavinia, and is a retelling of that story. And then I have a few from Team Tragedies. First is Julius Caesar. And I'm not even going to read out the prompt for that one, because I'm actually just going to read Julius Caesar. And since right now we are actually studying, like this week in school, we are studying Julius Caesar and then some of the other kind of main leaders like Octavian and Mark Antony. And so this is the perfect time. I probably actually should have read it last month during the actual, Ides of March, but very close to that time. So that'll be fun to revisit that play, because Julius Caesar was actually my favorite play that I read in high school. Of all of the Shakespeare we read in high school, it was my favorite, and I haven't read it since high school, so it'll be interesting to return to that one and to see if it's still up there in one of my favorites, because at that point I'd only read like 3 of Shakespeare's plays. So now that I've read more of them, it'll be interesting to revisit that one. The next prompt is King Lear, which the prompt is, if only characters saw past their pride and greed and listened to each other, and that's to listen to an audiobook. And I do have the physical book. I have the book Cleopatra, A Life by Stacy Schiff, and this is just a biography of Cleopatra. But I think I'm going to listen to this on audiobook, because I just kind of enjoy listening to biographies on audiobook as opposed to reading them, because sometimes you can get into sections that are a bit dry, and this is a longer one, so I think I'll stay better focused if I listen to it. So I'm going to read this one on audiobook, which I'm also really excited about this one, because last week our focus was on Cleopatra and I was just really enjoying it. We read several picture books, since it was on my daughter's level, and I enjoyed all the picture books. I really liked reading about Cleopatra, so that will be a fun one to get to. And the last one I'm doing is Antony and Cleopatra. So once again, I'm not going to read the prompt, because I am just going to read Antony and Cleopatra. I have never read this play. Like I said, we just studied Cleopatra, so obviously we talked about Mark Antony, and I am very interested in this. I know obviously he is taking much liberties with the stories in order to be more dramatic, but I figure this will be definitely a very dramatic play with, like, you know, a lot of feels in it. So I'm excited to read this one for the first time. And then the last category of books I want to pick from are 2022 releases. I have been doing this thing where I did this last year too, where any books that I was anticipating and wanting to read that were new releases, I would just request them from my library, and, you know, I might do it several months before they were released, and so whenever the book came out and there was a copy available, it would just come to me. Well, the problem is I haven't been reading them, and now I have this huge stack of new releases, and I need to read some, because some of these are due back to the library, you know, in just a couple weeks. So those will be the priority, and then just reading as many of these new releases as I feel compelled to do. Obviously, I'm not going to read all these because there's a lot here, you will see. So I'm going to go through these really quickly. I separated them out by month. So let's talk about January releases first. I have The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. I have liked some of their YA romances that they have wrote in the past, but their last two ones I kind of hated. And so I was going to give up on this author duo, but this is their first adult romance. And so I wanted to at least give their adult book a try. But if I don't like this one, or if I DNF it, then I'm probably done with these authors. This is a married couple writing duo, and this book is about a male and female writing duo that they don't like each other when they're writing, but obviously it's going to be hate to love. So that's kind of interesting because it seems like almost based off of their real life, you know, relationship. So I at least want to give it a try. And then I have The Siren of Sussex by Mimi Matthews. This is a new historical romance companion series that she is writing. And I've really enjoyed the Mimi Matthews book that I read in the past. So I'm interested in this one. I did start it when it first came out, but then got distracted by other things. So I'll probably just restart the book. And then I have The Dream Spies by Nicole Lesperance. And this is a middle grade kind of spooky fantasy book. This is the second. And I think the last book I think it's a duology. Though, never know, she could add more to it. But I really enjoyed the first book. I thought it had the perfect amount of creepiness in it. And it takes place in this like kind of urban fantasy setting because it's like in our modern time. But then there is like little bits of magic. And this family that we are following can do dream magic. So they create dreams and sell them to people. And they can also make nightmares. And so that's what the first book was based on. And that book takes place at a summer camp, which is a great setting for me. I love that setting, so I am interested in reading that one. And then I have The Bow and Spindle by Leslie Vedder, and this is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but we have like two women who are trying to save the Sleeping Beauty character, who I believe is a man. And I think they even describe this as being slightly Indiana Jones-like. So lots of adventure and fairy tale, fantasy, fun. It sounds like a really fun one from the reviews that I've seen. And then I have Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. And this one is based off of, I think is it Chinese mythology? Yeah, so it's a fantasy book based off of some Chinese folklore. I don't really know anything about the plot, but it's got a beautiful cover. And I've been really enjoying reading things based off of different folklore. So I at least want to give it a try. And I don't know if I'll read it this month because it is so huge, but I would like to get to it soon. And then I have Ain't Burnt All the Bright by Jason Reynolds and artwork by Jason Griffin. And this one is a really short one because I think it's like mostly based on like art. So you can see there's only like maybe one sentence on a page. So Jason Reynolds has written the writing that is in here, and then his friend Jason Griffin has done all the artwork. This is a huge book because it's all like based on art. And then next I have The Appeal by Janice Hallett, and this is a thriller or mystery that is mixed media, so everything in here is like emails and correspondence, things like that tell the story, and I really like that format, so I wanted to give it a try. And this is one that I think it came out in the UK a year ago, but then just made its United States release. But I've been hearing a lot of buzz about it lately, so I don't know if that's just because of the release of it in the United States, but I wanted to give it a try because I do like that mixed media format. Then the last one from January is Medusa by Jessie Burton, and this has illustrations by Olivia Lomanek Gill, because this is going to be very much like involving graphics as a main part of the story. And this is a retelling of Medusa, but I think it gives more like a sympathetic backstory. And I'm excited about this one because I've been reading a lot of Greek retellings lately, and I like it when they take myths that are based around the women characters and give them more of a story, and especially the ones that have been painted as like kind of the villains and evil, and show that there's a reason why they are like that, because Medusa wasn't always, you know, the serpent-headed woman that she is in the myth. Like she was turned that way by the gods. So I am just interested to hear it from her point of view. And then I have one February release, which is not actually a new release. It's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, but I was given a arc of a new audiobook, which was narrated by, and I can't remember her name right off the top of my head, so I'll write it here, but it's the lady that plays Lady Danbury from the Bridgerton series on Netflix, but they gave me an arc of it, but they gave it to me after it had already come out, the audiobook, so I wasn't able to listen to it before it came out in February. But I'm really excited to hear it narrated by her because I think she's an amazing actress, and I've really been enjoying her character in Bridgerton. So hearing her read Pride and Prejudice, I think will be really great. So maybe look that up. Like I said, I wrote her name so that you could see if you can get a hold of the audiobook that she has narrated. And then I have some March releases. So the first one is The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but this one I heard is kind of like a modern Jurassic Park. And Jurassic Park just is one that I grew up with, and I really love both the book and the movie. So I want to give it a try. It might be too graphic for me, but I at least want to try it. And I also want to say that this mentions COVID right in the description. So if that's something that you're not ready for, things that are actually set in COVID times, just know that, because it's saying right at the beginning, when COVID sweeps through New York City, our main character loses his job and he's looking for a position and gets a position as a security guard in this preservation society. And I think it's like monsters, kind of like dinosaur creatures. I don't think they're actually dinosaurs, but they're some kind of giant creatures that are scientifically created or something like that. And so it'll be very much like a Jurassic Park story. And then I have The Ogress and the Orphans by Kelly Barnhill. This is the woman that wrote The Girl Who Drank the Moon, which almost everybody else seemed to love, but I did not like it. But I wanted to give her another try, and so I figured I would try her new release. So who knows, I might not make it through this one because, like I said, I didn't like her most popular book, but there were reasons relating to topics that are important to me, and that's why I didn't like that book. So I'm hoping that I can like this one instead. So I'll give this a try. This is about an ogress, I think, that becomes friends with some orphans, and then when the children, I think they start to go missing, and so then the town turns on the ogress, thinking she's the one who is hurting the children. And then I have The Book of Living Secrets by Madeline Rue, and this one is about, I think, two teenagers or two friends who are obsessed with this book, and they get a chance to enter the book and they think it's all exciting, but it turns out maybe the book is more sinister than they thought. And so I felt like they said, the reason I picked this one up because in the blurb it says it's for fans of the Hazelwood, and I really enjoyed the Hazelwood, so I wanted to give it a try. Obviously it's a different author, and it's an author I've never read before. I think this might be her debut. So I'm going to give it a try. I am not afraid to DNF books that I'm not sure about, but I at least wanted to try it since the concept sounded really fun. And then I have The Last Laugh by Mindy McGinnis, and this is the sequel to The Initial Insult, which I read last year, which was like a retelling of The Cask of Amontillado, is that how you say it, by Edgar Allan Poe. And at that time when I read that book, I had not read any Edgar Allan Poe stories recently, and so I don't think I caught all the references, but now in the last year I have read a lot of Poe stories, so I'm excited to pick this one up and see like the conclusion to this duology and also what kind of references are in this one. Part of me thinks I should go back and read the first one, but it was very intense. Like, this is not like a fluffy young adult book. That one was very intense and definitely a revenge story and not going light on the story. And so I don't think I want to reread the first book, but I do want to see what happens next in the story. So I'll just hopefully see a lot more of the connections to Poe's work in this second book. And then I have The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. And this one, I think everybody's going to be reading. A lot of people will be reading this one because Simone St. James has become very popular in the last few years. I have enjoyed her books that I have read. Some of them haven't been like my favorites, but I have enjoyed everything I've read by her. And so I am interested in picking this one up. I didn't look into it very much because I feel like with these kind of spooky, mysterious books, it's better not to know too much. But I know that this will have 2 timelines and 2 different women in those timelines. Yeah, so it's in 1977 and 2017, following 2 women. That's all I know. But I like that format that she does her books in and following the 2 timelines. And then the last March one is 9 Lives by Peter Swanson. And this is a thriller. I don't know a lot about it other than I think it's like these 9 people get a list and they are on a list and people start dying off the list. So they try to figure out why they're on this list. This is one of those things where I have loved the first Peter Swanson book that I read, The Kind We're Killing, and then I didn't like the next book I read by him. So I'm like, is he a one-hit wonder for me personally? And so I wanted to give this new one a try, and this would be kind of like a last attempt. That if I don't like this one, I'm probably done, because a lot of the other ones he's written that I haven't read, I have no interest in, like in terms of the topic. So this one sounds interesting, and if I don't like it, then I probably just only liked that one book by this author and probably won't be picking up anything in the future from him. Oh, and then I forgot, I do have one more March release, but I don't have it physically because it's on the way from the library. So I will be picking it up later this week, and that is This Golden State by Merritt Weisenberg. And this one I'd heard on Beautifully Bookish Bethany's channel. I heard her review it and it sounded really interesting. I never heard of it until she was talking about it. And it's about a family that's like on the run and like constantly moving around, and our main character, she spent her whole life like this on the run and doesn't know why. Like her family is keeping secrets, and she does a DNA test that reveals some secrets, and then now she's put her whole family at risk. That's all I know. It's like very ominous, and that just sounds really interesting, so I wanted to pick it up and give it a try. And then I do have 2 April releases that I have as ARCs. First, I have a physical ARC for Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This was a Goodreads giveaway that I won, which was so exciting because I had never won a Goodreads giveaway after like years of trying for them. And I'm glad it was this one because T. Kingfisher is a fantasy author that I really enjoy. I don't really know anything about what this is about because I didn't really want to go into it since it is kind of a shorter book. It just says on the back, this isn't a fairy tale where the princess marries a prince. It's one where she kills him. And she always does kind of more, not necessarily intense fantasy, but definitely takes some tropes and turns them on their head. And that's what I've liked about her past work. So I am interested in reading this one before it comes out. I think it comes out at the end of April. So I will be getting to it before the release date, but probably in the same month that it releases. Then the other release, I might not get by the time it comes out because it comes out April 5th, is Glass Slippers by Leah Cypress. And this I got as an e-arc. And this is the second book in her companion series, which are about kind of sisters that didn't exist in fairy tales. So it's told from like a new perspective. The first one was a Sleeping Beauty retelling where Sleeping Beauty has a sister. This one is Cinderella having a third stepsister that we don't learn about in the book. So I don't know if she's an evil stepsister or if she's a good stepsister. And it's just following her perspective. And this is after I think Cinderella has already become married to the prince. And it'll be really fun because I liked the first book a lot. I liked that it had a little bit of creepiness to it. He like didn't just make it all fluffy and like magical. Like there was some definitely intense moments, but a lot of fun. So I am interested to continue on to this companion. I don't think they're going to be related in any way other than just she's kind of like following this theme of fairy tale retellings. And that's it. Lots of books, lots of possibilities, but I'm really excited to, continue or finish some series and read some books about ancient Rome and then finish some of these new releases. Obviously, I won't be able to read all of them, but I would like to get some of them read because I don't think I've read hardly any 2022 releases so far, and there's just a lot of them that I'm interested in, obviously, so I want to read some of those and let you know which ones I like so far. So that's it for me. Let me know what you think you're going to read in April, and I'll see you next time. Bye.